Good afternoon, everyone. Carasoft Technology would like to welcome you to our ServiceNow Federal Tech Talk, Modernizing Grants Management for Government Agencies, Unlocking Efficiency and Impact with ServiceNow. Just to tell you a little bit about Carasoft, we are a trusted government IT solutions provider supporting public sector organizations across federal, state, and local government agencies, including education and healthcare markets. At this time, I'd like to hand the floor over to our first presenter of the day. Kevin, the floor is all yours.
Heather, thank you so much and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have time with all of you on today's webinar, focusing on modernizing grants management for government agencies. My name, as Heather mentioned, is Kevin Adler, and I'm a solutions executive here at ServiceNow supporting the U.S. federal government. I'm joined by my distinguished colleagues, Chris and Therese and Eduardo. Each of us will introduce ourselves as we get through the presentation. And by the way, if you would like to reach out to any of us, please put a period before in the middle of our first and last name, as you see on the screen, and add the @servicenow.com and you'll find our inbox. We're all delighted to have you join us today as we delve into the world of grants management and how modernizing this crucial process can drive efficiency, transparency, and impact for government organizations and those who receive the grants. Grants play a vital role in empowering governments to address critical societal challenges. They fund research and development, and they foster economic growth. However, traditional grant management processes most frequently suffer from inefficiencies, they suffer from manual workflows, and they suffer from a lack of visibility, which lead to a delay in decisions, compliance, and missed opportunities. Because we're talking about software and the future, we've got the safe harbor slide here. So forward-looking statements might be made in this presentation. But the goal of today's webinar is to talk about showcase ServiceNow's cutting-edge platform and the robust suite of grants management solutions that can transform the way in which our government customers administer and oversee grants from the full life cycle. Chris and Therese and Eduardo and I will discuss the key challenges faced by governments in grant administration, and we'll shed light on how ServiceNow's innovative technologies can streamline the entire grants lifecycle, from application submission to reviewing the award management to evaluating the performance and then reporting. ServiceNow provides a comprehensive and integrated approach to grants management. So please feel free to jot questions down in the Q&A panel and join us as we explore the advantages of digitizing and automating grants management and improving the collaboration, improving the data accuracy, and accelerating the decision-making experience for all of those customers on the line today. And whether you represent a local, state, or federal agency, this webinar is designed to equip you with the knowledge and the tools to modernize your grants management practices, overcome challenges, and potentially unlock more potential for your grant programs. So we look forward to sharing this information with you. At the end, we'll have a Q&A session. We will share more details at the end. But with that in mind, I'm pleased to hand the microphone over to my esteemed colleague, Chris. Take it away.
Thanks, Kevin, and good morning to those of you on the West Coast, and good afternoon to those of you everywhere else in the country. I'm Chris Rossmeisel. I'm with our industry solutions team here at ServiceNow. And as Kevin mentioned, we'll try to focus Q&A towards the end of the session, but feel free to use that functionality as we go through things. If there's something that pops up, myself and other panelists will make sure to monitor that and respond in line as needed. So as Kevin talked about, a handful of challenges, and as we look across federal, state, and local government, just the things we observe in understanding how organizations manage the entire grants lifecycle. Kevin alluded to it earlier, right? I think it really starts going out of sequence here with those solid work streams. We see that being pervasive really from a technology tool set standpoint. Lots of Outlook, lots of Excel, those Microsoft Office centric solutions that are not fully designed to be that collaborative single pane of glass for an entire organization to manage grants. And so what that ultimately leads to is those manual processes that we see across the board. On average, when we look at that full end-to-end scale, We often see things that are in that 60% range from a manual standpoint. Ultimately is leading to that immense lack of visibility across the life cycle. And when this all adds up, right, it just comes down to how can we truly impact those communities that these grants are meant to serve. So we have taken an approach and a point of view that really unlocks that full-scale visibility across the organization, making it a great experience, not just for those constituents or businesses or nonprofits applying for the grants, but more importantly, making it a great experience for the individuals inside that agency dispersing the grant as well. And so we've shared a little bit about some of the challenges we're seeing and what we're hearing from our government entities that we work with. Would love to hear from all of you. So Heather, if you wouldn't mind firing up that first poll, we'll give folks about 15, 20 seconds here to submit your answers. Would really love your feedback here. And Heather, can you see that? I pulled that over those responses.
I can't see it, but I have them that all of the above seems to be our winner.
It does, 53%. So really appreciate that. And we like to ask that not just to get, make sure that what we're hearing from the marketplace matches your challenges, but also gives us that idea and validates our thought process that grants management is not just a singular component of the grants life cycle, but it's really that whole end-to-end from cradle to grave. And so at ServiceNow, we've developed our grants management framework that we feel truly encapsulates this entire life cycle. And we've broken it down into 4 pillars. We start first with what we call that request for application stage. This is where we've established that budget, we're getting internal buy-in, and we're starting to shape and craft what those requirements will look like for potential grantees to go ahead and apply for funding. And we streamline that through our online portal and make it seamless for applicants to go view available opportunities, go through a registration process, validate they're eligible to even apply, and then all the way down to application selection using that collaborative approach internal to the organization and maybe external. That's another thing that we're seeing more frequently is, while a public health agency may be the one dispersing the grant, they may be getting insight from another nonprofit. They might be getting insight from a research university. So that ability to bring together this cross-functional team to review all of those applications and determine that the right organizations are receiving the grants. And then as we lead into that post-award stage, right, making sure that those grantees are not only aware of, but reporting against those required milestones, giving those grantees an opportunity to ask questions, to reach out for help, to submit invoices. And last but not least, truly have an impact on the beneficiaries that they're meant to serve. Rounding out that 4th leg of the chair is that analysis and oversight. Again, because we're delivering everything on a singular platform, we've got that ability to gain insight from that initial stage 1 with that RFA stage, all the way through post-award. And we'll show you a little bit of what that looks like here today. As I mentioned, ServiceNow is a singular platform on a singular solution, and that's what makes it easy to gain that visibility. Things like on-demand reporting, real-time visibility, being able to facilitate online portals, community forums where other grantees can collaborate with one another. Makes it easier not only for the grantees and the dispersing agency, but also holistically for everyone to have the biggest impact against the community. So for today's journey, we're going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what this looks like in a day in the life. We're going to meet a few different personas along the way. From a public health agency standpoint, our internal personas here. We've got Tom, who's our executive, Brittany, who's a subject matter expertise, typically an analyst, and then Lexi, who's our program manager. And when we developed our grants management framework, we really designed it around Lexi. As we followed through those 4 pillars, Lexi was that common thread from start to finish. And that's what we'd like to show with you today. We'll also share with you the point of view from Julie, who's going to be our applicant and grantee. Julie has really founded a nonprofit to help underserved communities with their public health needs. So we'll start things off on that RFA chevron. And if, as we're going along, we call out as we go through each stage where we're at in that process. If you look in the upper right-hand corner. So Lexi's going to log in for the day into her ServiceNow grants management workspace. This is going to be her daily cockpit for managing all of the grants that Lexi's responsible for. They've just received new funding and are going to initiate a new grant to be developed and issued to the public. Lexi goes through and starts to fill out all the pertinent information. She's going to determine the key milestones, the funding allocation, the funding period, and all those critical requirements before releasing this grant. These details will be transferred over into that grant application, so Lexi's no longer having to enter information more than one time. We can span the grant across multiple fiscal years, and in some cases, we've heard of 5, 6, even 7 years that grants need to span. And so being able to visualize and make sure we're capturing that from an annual basis is important for Lexi in this case. As Lexi progresses through all of the information she needs to fill out, she'll have automated workflow tasks generated to guide her on to the next step. So now that she's built or defined that RFA package, she's now going to route it for approval, which is where Tom comes into play. Tom will receive notification either via email or in a ServiceNow mobile app to go ahead and review the full application package and approve it. Once approved, again, we'll have an automated task generated for Lexi to go publish this on the portal. We're giving Lexi the power here to actually publish the grant out on her own. No longer does Lexi need to go out to a web development team or anyone else to actually get this out on the public portal. We make it very easy for Lexi to go ahead and publish this out to the general public. Now we're going to look at that application submission to award phase. And we're going to start out with Julie, who at this point is a guest. Julie's navigated to that public portal and reviewed any open and upcoming grants that are available to her. Upon reviewing the Adolescent Family Life Program grant that was recently published by the Department of Health, Julie's reviewed the eligibility, believes she's eligible to apply for this, and proceeds to go through that registration process. Now, we've got a lot of flexibility in how we can set this up. The way we've got this set up today is that Lexi is actually going to help do that double validation as well to ensure that eligible businesses, nonprofits, or constituents are applying and effectively being able to apply for the grant. Once she's been approved, Julie is now considered an applicant and begins reviewing the full package and applying. We've got a couple different options. Julie can either look through each section, choose to fill out the application and then upload it, or we also offer freeform text fields to keep it 100% digital, save a few trees. Back at the Department of Health, Lexi's getting real-time visibility across every single application as they're coming in. So as she sees here, there's about 6 or 7 entities that have applied for the grant, and she sees that they're all completed, which prompts her to now start the evaluation process. Lexi, Brittany, and Tom now can collaboratively review each of the applications and dynamically score each of the applications to determine who the best possible grantees are. That information is populated in that single pane of glass to help Lexi determine not only the highest scoring applicant, but also if there's multiple applicants as well. In this case, the funding allocation for this grant allows for more than just one entity to receive funding. And so Lexi can run simulations and dynamically determine the best possible outcome based on her available budget. So she can look at if 5 grantees are selected, 6 or 7. In this case, she knows that this grant has a possibility to go slightly over budget and wants to play it safe to ensure maximum impact for the community. Select the scenario with 5 grantees. At this point, Lexi will go through each individual application and dictate if it's approved or if they've been denied. From there, workflow kicks in once again to remind Lexi she's got to issue a public notice for all the awardees. Julie navigates back to that same portal that she applied and sees that her grantee, her entity was selected for this grant and was actually awarded more than they had requested. In parallel, Julie has received an automated email asking her to please sign in to sign the terms and conditions of the grant. As we shift to post-award, Julie assigned her contract. They've got all the T's and C's in place. Lexi needs to ensure that all of those key milestones outlined in that request for application are being followed and are being assigned appropriately. Lexi drills in and sees the full chart of required milestones, and more importantly, who they're assigned to and any dependencies. As this is being built out, Julie is also notified on her portal what tasks she's responsible for. In this case, it's been a few months since she's been awarded the grant, and she's being asked to submit her Q1 progress report back to Lexi. As she fills in all that information, she can also submit invoices or ask follow-up questions. Now that Lexi's received all of the quarterly reporting from Julie and the other grantees, ServiceNow can automatically generate these built-to-task reports that Lexi can disseminate internally or roll up to any additional agencies. In addition to submitting her required reports, Julie can also leverage our self-service capability with that ServiceNow portal. Julie interacts with our virtual agent and opens a case asking for status on payment for a recent invoice she submitted. Brittany will review that case, help triage it, and determine the best course of action to take on this. Julie can also interact with other members that have been awarded grants through our communities feature. Julie can coordinate, inquire about frequently asked questions that other grantees may have before reaching back out to the public health agency. And
hey, Chris, we got a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
Here. So
yeah, it's a good pausing point.
Let's pause real quick. So one of the questions that came up is, do you differentiate between threshold evaluation review by reviewer and subsequent merit evaluations by a panel of reviewers of those applications that have passed a certain threshold? And I'm answering a couple of those questions.
Yeah, Kevin, on the grants.gov, you or Eduardo, can you answer one of those?
And the login.gov too. I mean, we integrate with any SAML system. I'm just not sure if we've done it with login.gov. So.
Let's put those to the back of the list and take the other questions.
Okay, sounds great.
I like Ryan's question. Ryan asks, is this solution available now to purchase? Is this a custom app built? This solution that Chris is walking through is all built on ServiceNow. And yes, it's available to purchase now. It is. It needs to be deployed. It needs to be integrated with existing infrastructure and investments and systems of record. But yes, Ryan, you can look to us to help you modernize this experience today.
We might have to hold on to those questions from Timothy.
Yep.
All right, and thanks for calling that out, Therese.
Sure.
Good timing as well. I will turn things over to you on the performance monitoring and oversight part.
Yep, and I get to talk about the fun stuff, right? So, so Chris, if you go to the next slide, we're going to focus in on that executive point of view. So what we bring to the table is the ability for that executive to get a snapshot of how well these programs are performing. So what you're looking at here is Tom as an executive, he can actually see all of the different programs and RFAs and grant programs that he has, but he has the ability to see what state they're in. What is the overall status, right? It has red, yellow, green indicators to really give him a notification if things are performing or on target, right? So you'll see those red, yellow, green indicators. What's great about this is he can also pivot, right? You'll see in this overview, I have the ability to see things by program, by type. But if I want to add maybe a cost variance, you can add that as well. And you're literally doing a drag and drop to do that. So Chris, if you go to the next slide. So here what Tom is looking at is now he's able to see how well each of these grant programs are doing from a cost perspective, the actual cost, the variance, right? And so he's able to really see at a glance at any time where they're at from a funding perspective. Do they have enough funding? Do they not have enough funding? And so you can see by each of the different programs on the left-hand side, he has the ability to actually see all those financial information. And then the other thing that's great too is if you go to the next slide, Chris. So if he needed to at any time do a funding reallocation, right? Or you'll see here, he has the ability to see what the total funding is for each of the programs, but he also has the ability to reallocate funds. So if you look in the middle, you'll see I've got $1 million of funds received for the adolescent family life. And I've got 300,000 allocated and 250,000 allocated for each of these programs. If I needed to, and I need to reallocate, let's say 50,000, I have the ability to do that reallocation right from this view as well. Okay, and I think, Chris, we have another poll. If you go to the next.
Before we get to the poll, hey, Therese, Mark
Yes.
has his hand up.
Oh, yes.
Mark, are you able to come off mute, or Heather, can we give him audio access? Unless we can't, then Mark, please type your question in the Q&A panel.
We can give them permission, but it looks like he just lowered his hand. So
Okay.
I think we're good to proceed with the
Okay.
poll.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Teresa. Last point on this, right, is being able as an agency to get that entire view, not just on one particular grant, but that entire, holistic grant picture across all those different program areas. And being able to see that at the highest level has been very positively received by agencies we've been talking to. So with that, second and I believe last poll of the day, we'd love to get everyone's feedback. What did you like about what you saw today? Today was intended to provide you with just a snippet of what this looks like. As you all know, managing the entire life cycle of a grant is a very in-depth process. So we just wanted to share some of those unique points of view across our grants management framework and gather your feedback.
Looks like it was a close race between establishing the grant and building the application and all of the above.
Outstanding. Thank you all for your participation. Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. So with that, Heather, if you want to open up the microphones, or if there's folks out there like who raised their hand, want to ask an audible question, we're here to answer your questions. If not, the Q&A channel is active and we are answering them as we see them in the Q&A channel. And finally, if you have a question that you think of after you leave the session today, if it's easiest, just to remember the email address on the screen, MRO, Mark Romeo Oreo at servicenow.com. That comes to us. We'll be able to personally respond to your inquiry. And Heather just threw that in the chat, so thank you. Great turnout for today's session. Excited by the number of folks interested in modernizing grants management. Pleased to take any other final questions.
Yeah, Kevin, there's a couple in the Q&A. There's an anonymous question. How do you handle integrating financial solutions so users can seamlessly how much money they can allocate to a given program? So ServiceNow has a number of already built integrations, what we refer to as spokes, into most of the common financial platforms. So typically that's a fairly easy setup since we've already built that integration for you to pass that information back and forth to your financial system.
Fantastic. And I see Sarah asks a question about, will this today's session be shared publicly? And yes, Heather's going to get this up to YouTube and then it will be shared publicly. And I think everyone on this call will get an informational link to that YouTube recording so that you can share it and review it with your teams. And then Tim, you have a question here. Do you have a differentiate between threshold, evaluation, review by a reviewer and subsequent merit evaluation scored by a panel of reviewers, and those applications that passed threshold evaluation? Tim, the answer to that question is yes. You can develop this solution to support any required business needs for your organization. So whether or not Chris rolled through the demonstration and answered that or not, how this solution is deployed specifically for your needs can support those threshold evaluations by the reviewers.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, Kevin, one way, and I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, one way could be a requested funding amount. So if you get 5 applications, let's say the funding allocation is $1 million, and you've got 2 of the 5 are requesting $2 million instead of the $1 million threshold, you could just drop those applications and then roll that into that more collaborative evaluation period. Another anonymous one, is there an ability to have multiple levels of review before publication? Will it work the same way? Yes, so we showed a more simplistic version today. I believe you're referring to that grant application before it's posted out to the public. We just showed that single level of approval to the executive. This could be multi-layers. So if you need 5 approvals, 4 approvals, if it was dependent on the funding amount, so for $1 million and below, maybe it's just 1 or 2 approvals. That $2 million, $5 million mark, maybe that's going to 3 or 4 levels of approval. And you can configure those settings in ServiceNow to dictate which layer of approval is needed based on that dollar amount. And I think the last one here is Ryan's asking if it can be configured in a way to allow for a form of repayment. I don't see why not, considering since those grantees can submit invoices requesting reimbursement, wouldn't be all that dissimilar to just kind of move that 2 degrees to the right and turn that more into a loan repayment.
That's one of the nice things, Chris, I always like to remind customers is that our entire Now platform is a low-code, no-code platform. So if customers have unique requirements, like all customers do, to any implementation for a solution built on ServiceNow, those unique requirements, like Ryan's question about repayments, that can be built into the solution that's actually deployed.
Another anonymous question, loan servicing capabilities. So yes, and I believe there was a question earlier about our financial services industry solution that does have a loan servicing capability. Again, this kind of dovetails to what Kevin was just saying. We have built that out of the box within the financial services application. But because everything is built on ServiceNow, that capability can be done here, in which we're using the public sector version of our industry solution.
Chris, we had one other question, and I just answered it, but how to track the grant used details and for what purpose, right? So when Chris went through the process of showing the program, when you created the actual new program, that's part of the details that you would enter. It's part of, what is the purpose of this particular grant, how it would be used, who are the types of organizations that can apply for it, who is eligible for what criteria. So all those details are entered when you actually create the grant itself.
Good questions.
Yeah, great questions. Very good questions from the audience. Thanks for the time. With that, if there aren't any final questions, Heather, I think we're good to go. Pass it back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. To close things out, I'd just like to thank all of our participants as well as our speakers for being with us today. We hope the information you've received during this webinar has been helpful.